Welcome, students, to the last lecture of this class, and we're going to be talking about the deviant career. And I'm super excited to do this with you. So, as we go into this topic, I'm looking forward to talking about it with you. So, we're going to talk about some really important elements in this course. So, you know what? Without further ado, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to finish out consistently. Let's just jump right into it, shall we? All right. So, when we're talking about deviance, let me make myself a little smaller so you can read the slide. We are looking at this, right? The final section of this course is exploring that of the deviant career. The deviant career includes the stages of becoming deviant, changing over time, and ultimately exiting deviance and becoming post-deviant. Let's look at each of these stages of participation with a career perspective, right? Let's look at it as if we're on LinkedIn. How do I become a deviant, right? It's actually quite similar. That's why I'm laughing to what it is. Now, much of the research and theories we have explored over the course have focused on what takes place for a person to become deviant. Examining risks and reasons for becoming deviant allows assistance and policy to create to help deter or keep people from entering a life of deviance. Many people who enter deviance join cooperative deviant acts and enter deviance through the encouragement of others to assist them. The transition from doing a deviant act, primary deviance, to accepting the deviant label, secondary deviance, allows them to go through the entire phase of the deviant career. Using a career perspective, we can see that training and socialization are necessary, similar to a normal job, for new deviants to learn how to perform their deviance and grow in their career, just like a normal job. Changes over time occurs with deviant career as participants face different challenges and opportunities for committing deviant acts. Exiting deviance simply refers to when a person wants out of the deviance associated with the career and the lifestyle. So understanding this really becomes the basis of our formal education on deviance. So different factors may push or pull a person out of the deviant life and into a conventional one. A push factor would be something that is not desired any longer or something that causes a person to want out, such as watching friends die of overdoses, being arrested, burning out from the stress. These are all things next to the overdoses, which is not actually that uncommon in some worlds that are in the worlds that we live in right now. So it's kind of crazy to think about why the word career is so important, right? Such as watching these friends, or a pull factor that makes you want to not be arrested or being in trouble. A pull factor is something that draws a person out of the world, such as encouragement from family members who are not part of the deviant circles. And this is what we start seeing as part of the deviance research, and policymakers are also interested in exiting deviance, just like entering deviance, because they want to be able to help people exit successfully and join the conventional normative lifestyle. Not as much is known about the post-deviant life because research is much harder to conduct. I mean, asking somebody like, hey, yo, like, why'd you leave? Isn't going to work because right, they're going to get labeled, retrospective labeling, like we talked about. So it's harder to conduct. So once people leave deviance behind, they truly strip all communications with their deviant organizations and disperse into the larger community. So it's harder to find people to see what they are doing and how they are living conventionally. While the deviant career is fascinating to look at and how people enter the deviant world, are socialized and trained, growing in their position and exit deviance, we know more research about becoming deviant than we do leaving it. This is because it's much tougher to get researchers to get in with the deviant organization and allowed to witness the socialization process take place. It's also harder to find information about post-deviants after they leave. As I mentioned, no one really wants to mention that. That's why they're walking away. This leaves much room for continued research in deviance, which is super exciting if you're someone like me who cares about it, and learning about behaviors, right? And learning to learn behaviors, especially when they fall within the different stages of the deviant career. Now, as we go into this kind of conversation, we're going to start talking about the idea of, well, what does this mean? What does this really transfer to, right? So we're going to kind of pull from here. I'm going to read through your ideas, go to your learn section for the individual's work. But this chapter, and Howard especially, is interesting when you ask yourself one of the hardest questions. I asked myself in the in-person class, and I asked my class as well, how can you leave deviant career and identity behind? There are consequences to attempting to leave that the chapter talks about, and I want you to focus on that as well. What happens when you are engulfed into that lifestyle and you have tertiary deviance or cooperative deviance, and the deviance form organization, and how does your life has been impacted? How much will be lost to leave that position, right? That status, that idea of role conflict, right? So how about those who deal with the identity void and the institutions and personal connections don't allow you to step away, such as those who suffer from eating disorders or those who are recovering addicts? And how many times have people said once an addict, always an addict? and how it is normal to say I am always in recovery, right? Like people say this all the time. So how do you get away from this? Interesting thing to think about when Deviant's lifestyle came with a danger or fast living is that how do you actually return back to normal? So when you're in a situation, right, when we're looking here in the conclusion slide of if you are making 400 to $1 million+ a year on dirty money, right, deviant money, how do you go to spending 30,000? Because you many times you'll see in Beck and Howard talks about this, that you have a front-facing legal org, but your main source of income is your deviant org, right? So in that situation, how do you pull back the curtains and go back to making 30,000, 40,000, $50,000 a year when you're making $500,000 a year, if not more, right? Becomes almost impossible. So how do you leave deviance? What happens if your family's involved? What about when you're part of a mafia, right? Like getting out can come at the expense of the safety of your loved ones, right? And how do you, if you spent 30 years as somebody in a deviant lifestyle organization, how do you start again? These are the parts I want you to think about, is that deviance can be very, very impactful and you can find unity inside it. But if you want to leave it, what does that mean? Right? You just pick up and leave states. But what if the deviance is something that you do? Right? If the deviance is the label of an eating disorder, moving states won't solve that. If you're somebody who is highly involved in illegal formal deviant organizations, it's unlikely they won't track you, right? So you have these situations that it's really hard to actually return to normal life from that deviant career. Now, in conclusion to this chapter, right, I love this topic of deviance. I hope you've enjoyed this course, and I wish you the best luck on your exam. And I just want you to think as you're leaving this course, while you're writing your last, reflection paper, like, is this what you thought deviance was? I mean, deviance by basic definition is stepping away from the norm. End of quote, right? So, how do you leave? What do you leave? Can you leave? Is it possible to leave? And what does it mean for you to leave? So I love this course. I love this material. I'm so happy to have been a part of this course with you. And as the slide says, that's all, folks. I hope you've enjoyed this class. It's been my pleasure to be your instructor. The final exam submission and of work, and then you're done. And I look forward to reading all of your reflections. Tell me about it. Tell me what this class challenged for you. This was such a faster version of my class. And I love doing this in person because I get to see the people's eyes change about like the things they're looking at. I don't get that online. And I also think that there's a community element online. It's interesting because as the chapters talk about, being able to talk about our things online allows us to maintain the loner status. So did you feel more comfortable sharing on Yellow Dig? Did you feel less comfortable? Was it weird admitting some of your secret deviances? Was it not? Do you think it would have been easier in person? Or do you think it's better to be behind the walls of the backstage, as Goffman talks about, and managing your impression? I'm so excited to have worked with you in this class. I really hope that you've been able to take something from it, as I know there's that kind of disconnection of online and offline. Thank you so much. Sorry for this tangential rant. It's been my pleasure as your professor to teach you this course. I hope you've really learned. I love this book. I love this class. And I am very thankful for each and every one of you. Thank you.